Sometimes life happens.
We see you.
And you feel all alone.
We feel you.
With nowhere to go.
We got you.
So many questions unanswered.
We understand, yeah.
And you feel like you can't.
But God
wrestle with your own thoughts. This is for you.
Yeah.
When life happens and it makes you feel like you're off the beat, 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 off the beat. Real authentic conversations. Welcome to Offbeat Podcast. I'm your host, Jorge and Sandra. And today we bring you guys another amazing episode. And so everyone knows what's coming up next. It's already close by. It's a few days away. Valentine's Day, the day of love and friendship, right? And so if you find yourself in the dating game, if you find yourself maybe, right after a breakup and you're debating like, man, should I go back in? Or maybe you're just like, man, I'm up against the fence. The dating game is just too crazy for me right now. Wherever you might find yourself, either way, man, this podcast is for you. You've clicked on the right one. So today, man, we have a beautiful story and they have agreed to come on and share their story. I'm excited to be able to interview them today and have a conversation with them. So let's welcome Jorge, George, and Sandra. Let's go. Welcome to Offbeat Podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
So you had me here prior when I did it in Spanish, and I just
it was like what was it like a year now, right?
About a year ago, yeah.
Right?
I think you were in
around
the other studio, right? Yeah. But I want to say thank you for having us both. And, here we are, we're just trying to answer everything that we can right now.
Yeah, let's do it. So quick fact. It's just funny. We just got to get this out. So it's just funny because this is our second take. Today, this is our second take because we had some technical difficulties, and so
blame it on me.
no, it's good. No, technical difficulties, but so we're excited though, and so I know if you checked out Jorge's podcast episode, it was in Spanish, and so I'm excited to be able to have you on English today, and now engaged,
engaged,
right?
She's there. It's real.
Yeah. So to break the ice a little bit, I know we broke the ice already, but let's do it again. Just for fun. So let's talk about the most that comes to your memory. What has been one of the most awkward dates that you've ever been on?
I would say it was our first date.
Okay.
Just because I have not dated in a long time other than when I met him.
Okay.
I guess, so we actually went on a date to Boiling Crabs. Our first date was really, really awkward. But it was funny too because as I was saying is that when I met him, it was love at first sight. I'm all nervous now. But it was one of those things, he had texted me prior before we had already met through a dating app.
Yeah.
And, he had asked me to go to Boiling Crabs. And so at that point, I was a little nervous because I was like, man, who's this guy asking me to Boiling Crab? And it was so crazy because at that moment, I once told myself, if I was ever a guy, I don't want to take a girl to Boiling Crab because one, she's going to be on her phone. She can't be on her phone, sorry. And then she's also going to have to communicate with me and so forth, So it's crazy because
and eat.
And just go in there. And that's what he did. And he invited me to Boiling Crabs and I was like, wow, this is really happening. Yeah. Okay. So
that's pretty smart though. That's Boiling Crab first date.
Yeah.
I mean, your hands are busy peeling shrimp and
had to. I think also, just to add a little bit more to that too, we met in a dating app.
Yeah.
Did I throw that in there?
So what dating app? So because there's hope.
Yeah.
What's the dating app?
It was Hinge.
Okay.
It was Hinge. I'm not one for dating apps.
Me neither.
My client, I had to throw that in there.
Yeah.
But my clients kind of pushed me to do it. Hey, you should just try it. And I was like, all right, just probably have it a couple days and then probably delete it. And then she hit me up actually on my birthday. I was on vacation in Hawaii and then she contacted me. She was the one that messaged me.
Okay, she made the first move.
Yeah, she made the first move, and then I was like, hey, let me contact you when I come back, and then we'll have a conversation. And then from there, then we went to the first date.
Yeah. Okay. All right. But how was it again? Because you were like sharing. What was it that she liked about you first?
Oh yeah. So the way that she contacted me was because you could do like a little 10-second recording of your voice.
Yeah.
And so she messaged me because she liked my voice.
Okay.
Yeah. She really liked the voice.
Part, like the party line voice, like that back in the days.
Contact me today.
You know, but it was one of those things as well too. You know, when it comes to the dating app, you can't trust anyone that's on there. You don't know what's on the other side, you know? So one of the things I was like, okay, if they have a voice, like at least I know it's verified. Like it might be that person, you know? So happened to be that I fell in love with his voice.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So boiling crab, and then so like at that, you know, so what was like your first, because you say like if I was a guy, like that's what I would do, but once you finally got invited to that, what was that kind of like, what the, like were you kind of like,
I was extremely nervous because at the time he was just like, you know, we're in an interview, and I was like, oh, what, you're gonna interview me? And you know, that's usually, it's so awkward at that moment. You're like, you know, what do I ask this person, like what's their favorite color? Like it's kind of like going back to like middle school again, you know, getting to know someone brand new, and being in your 30s and going on a date is, it's kind of tough. You don't know what questions to ask, you know, and it's one of those things like, do I want to just throw in the questions, or I want to go smooth in there, you know? So, you know, we got to know each other, and I got really nervous because he was asking very strong points, and I remember the sun hitting his eyes, and I was like, you have beautiful eyes. And he was like, okay, thanks. But I was so nervous, and I was like, man, this guy's really handsome. You know, let's see where it goes. You know, we wrapped it up on the date, and I was already ready to go, you know, into my car and leave. And we went in for a hug, and I didn't know that he was going to go in to kiss me.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. He's like, no, it's cool. Like, if you don't want to. He's like, if you don't want to, it's okay. And I was like, let's redo this again. And just replaying it was so funny because, you know, you don't get that often, you know, and just having to play that inner part of kid in that moment, you know, to replay that part again was fun. You know, it's up until when I got into my car, and I was just like, man, he must be something, you know, and I prayed over it, and I told God, if he's the one, then let him stay. If not, take him out. And it seems like God was really working. He's like, no, he's the one I want you to be with.
Here we are. Here we are. You know, here we are.
That's what's up. That's what's up, man. Oh yeah, no, that's, I mean, take notes, guys, because I mean, yeah, like, I mean, that's a great idea, like boiling crab, because they're, you know, you can't be on your phone because you don't want to stain your phone up, you know what I mean? And then you gotta eat, you know what I mean?
You have to.
It's kind of like that movie White Chicks. It always reminds me of that, like when Terry
Crews?
Terry Crews, where he takes to the restaurant, the fine dining, and he's like, man, girl, you sure can put it away.
And that's what we did. We were eating shrimp,
potatoes,
and that was it.
The garlic noodles.
That's it, the garlic noodles and everything.
The garlic breath.
You know?
That's what's up, bro. That's what's up, man.
Good.
So what about you, George? Like, did you have would you say that one, or did you have a different experience?
That one was up there too because of the kiss at the end. But yeah, I've had other ones. There was one where when I first moved out here to the Inland Empire, I took somebody out on a date, and I went to LA, and it was like a Sunday, and basically I didn't hit my mind that like everything closed early. It was like 9 p.m. Well, 9 p.m. is early in like, you know, the going out scene, you know? And so everything was closed from the clubs to every restaurant to where I was just like, well, you just want to go back home? And then she was like, yeah. She's like, this date sucked. And I was like, and then on top of that, I forgot this too. I didn't say it in the first take, but I actually got a ticket. I got a ticket.
A parking ticket?
No, it was one of those where I made a right turn into the entrance of the freeway, and I got it like a month later. Like the camera got me.
Oh, that's when the camera,
that's what it was. I was like, what
that was the red flag.
Man, that was straight line, bro. Like red flags everywhere, bro. Tickets, date sucks.
This ain't the one.
You're like, no, man, Sandra's waiting for. There's a Sandra waiting for you.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, yep, now we're here. You know, you had something good for me.
Yeah. We're actually reminiscing the other day about like, because we're talking about like icebreaker questions, you know what I mean? That was one of them, like first date. So we were reminiscing about our first date, when I forgot my wallet on our first date. You know what I mean? So that was like pretty cool. Not pretty cool, but that was pretty awkward.
He's like,
was
score.
pretty cool because I saved some money.
There you go. That was a test right there. I know what you did. I know what you did.
She asked her friends, so how was the date? I paid.
Yeah, no, I was in a rush, and it's funny because that was the other funny thing. She picked me up for our date that day.
There you go.
So
Oh,
it's like everything was
nice.
like backwards, man.
Nice.
But yeah, no, I was like, we're almost there, and I'm like, I forgot my wallet, and she's like, oh really? Like, it's cool, I got it. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. You know, I thought she was gonna be like, you want to turn around or something.
I was actually really working during that time.
Oh.
Yeah, you had just started working.
Yeah, because I was actually really young. I was
Yeah.
19 years old when we got together.
Yeah,
Oh, there
she
you
spent
go.
she spent her check on me.
Oh, there you go. That's a real one. That's a real one right there.
And then we shared. Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, because she wasn't making that much.
Yeah.
So we're like, and then we're like, we weren't really that hungry. So we're like, I think we shared an appetizer, no, and a plate. Yeah, an entree and an appetizer.
Yeah.
And I knew like
Yeah.
steak, I get full easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and he always eats my leftovers.
Uh-huh.
You know?
Yeah.
That's a real
That's
one right
funny.
there. It's like
Yeah,
the Bronx
so I was
style,
like,
you know, the whole
yeah,
going around the
yeah,
car. She
yeah.
opens the car for you.
Clack, clack. It's like, yes.
It's funny because you say that that happened to our second date that we went on. I had just got off of work.
Oh yeah.
And he was like, "Hey, do you want to like go like play pool?" And I was like, "Yeah, down." You know. So we show up and we took separate cars, and we get there and he was just like, I forgot my wallet. Like, I don't have any dollars on me. So luckily I had quarters. I was like, it's okay, I'll pay for it. He's like, you sure? I was like, it's only $3. Like,
Yeah, because it was like $1 for like every round that you play or whatever. And I was like, oh dang, I don't have any cash on me. She's like, it's okay, I got it.
I was
this
like,
time.
I got it. It's $3. I was like, we ain't drinking or eating. We're good.
And after that, we're cut.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, man, those are so. But kind of moving on now that we kind of broke the ice a little bit. So what one of the things that we're really huge on here is, of course, to have real, authentic conversations, and because we feel like that's one of the things that people can relate to. You know, there's always a story. Maybe our stories aren't always exactly the same. They're not similar in nature always. But one of the things we can always relate to is how things made us feel, experiences that we go through, how we learn from them and everything. So I always like to dig in. I know with George, he opened up a little bit in his episode about his childhood, and we'll kind of get to that in English too, so people can kind of understand. But growing up though, Sandra, how was growing up and maybe some of the experiences that you went through growing up, whether it had been traumatic or whatever the experience might have been, how did that translate to your relationships once you started, going into relationships with?
Yeah. Well, it was very, I grew up in a very tough and rough childhood, in a home, actually. So I was raised by my family, and a lot of that comes down to my mother. She had me at a very, really, really young age. She was doing drugs at the time when she had me. So I was born premature, and I was put into the system a lot earlier than anyone could ever imagine.
Yeah.
I was raised with step parents, guardian parents that took care of me my whole life.
Okay.
There was good times and there was a lot of bad times in those periods. I did experience my step family affairs. My stepmom had cheated and my parents got divorced. Yeah. And because of that, I had to go with my stepmom and be there with her, through the process, through the journey, the hurt, the pain. And what she didn't understand was what I was seeing. She was focusing on herself so much that she forgot about what I was looking at. And what I was looking at on the other side of the picture was, the abuse of her coming in and out with men, showing me a bad example of what love is supposed to be. Yeah. There was a lot of abuse. There was a lot of trauma. There was a lot of hurt. And, within that process, I was always thinking like there has to be more to this, what's going on. Yeah. And I had asked my mom, I was like, I know that I wasn't raised by you, but who are my family? And she had told me, she's like, you don't have a family, you don't have a mom, I'm the only person. And I was like, oh, okay. I took it as that. Yeah. And, not only that I was scarred and I was hurt, I was like, man, like, this is all that I have. Like, this is the life that I'm going to live with, Yeah. And it was up until I had got paperwork in the court stating that I did have a family and I did have a mom. And it was beautiful. But then again, I was like, man, I was covered in lies.
Yeah.
You know, like what kind of lifestyle was that being the age of 17? Luckily, I got to know my family. I met them, beautiful people. I have a great relationship with my mom. You know, we have our moments.
Yeah.
But it also got me to rebel from my step family. And I got upset and I got angry and I got hurt because of the pain, because of the trauma that I went through, and then the lies on top of that. So, you know, at the age of 17, I left the house and I started life a lot earlier than most people. Got an apartment at the age of 17, went to school. But also because of that, I was seeking for love. I was in and out with men. I, you know, was just trying to find that source. Like, man, if my mom was going through all that, like, why can't I? Like, maybe there's something out there for me, you know?
Yeah.
But not knowing that I was dealing with the grieving, I was dealing with the hurt, I was dealing with the pain, that I was putting that into relationships.
Yeah.
And, you know, I had got with this person, and it's the father of my children. And, you know, we were together for almost 10 years. And, you know, we were once married. Unfortunately, with that marriage, it failed because there was a lot of anger. There was a lot of untrust. There was a lot of unhealing parts of us that didn't heal correctly.
Right.
And because of that, I lost myself. And I was kind of like, man, like this isn't the life that I want.
Yeah.
You know, what I saw my mom go through, what I had to experience, like I don't want that for my children.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things that I had to break away, and I had to stand up and be like, okay, enough is enough, Sandra. Like, you need to start focusing on yourself, what makes you happy, because in the end, I have a son and I have a daughter.
Yeah.
And I look at it as like, is this what I want my son to treat a woman?
Right.
And also, is this what I want my daughter to be treated
How
by
to
a
be
man?
treated, yeah.
You know? And so I took that into consideration. And, you know, a lot of it comes down to is that, you know, I had lost my walk with God during that time in my early 20s. And it was very tough. And I think that's the reason why I went through what I went through. And when I went through my divorce, I, you know, redirected my life back to Christ. And I was like, hey, God, like, I need you to help me. I'm tired of taking this path. I'm tired of going through what I went through. Like, I'm done trying to live the life that I think I should, but I know it's not yours. And at that point, I lifted my hands up in the air and I said, God, take the road. Like, this is the path I want to be on, and just take me where I need to be, because this wasn't it.
Yeah.
You know,
You came to that surrender.
Yeah. So that's pretty much like, you know, the details as far as like, you know, the younger childhood version until my 20s, and now to where I'm at today.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's awesome. I mean, that's got to be very traumatic, you know, to, you know, in a way, you know, it seems like you had no identity, like in a way, because it's like, yeah, there you have a family. Like you said, there were good times, but then there were bad times, but then there's nothing more powerful in a child's life, you know. And I know, like, now that as parents, like you can understand, like, that there's nothing more, I know for me, like, there's nothing more that I desire than for my kids to have an identity, you know, like for them to know who they are, because one knows what it is to grow up not truly knowing who you are, you know. And then I can't even imagine, like, hey, not knowing your real family, not knowing, like, you know, the entire reasons why, and then knowing some of the reasons why, and just kind of like, man. And so it makes so much sense that, you know, why sometimes, you know, because, you know, we're talking about this earlier, that a lot of times, like, even though we see the trauma, you know, in our families and everything, and we grow up like thinking like, I never want to go through that, or I never want to see that. But it's crazy how, like, we're still vacuumed in, you know what I mean, to those type of circumstances and situations. And a lot of times it's because we don't heal.
Exactly.
You know, like, we don't allow God to heal us, and we don't allow ourselves, you know, to heal and to really like, you know, we just look for the moment, you know what I mean? Like, we want that void to be filled, whatever that void may be. And we just want to fill it, but without knowing, like, man, like, there's still unhealed areas in our lives. And it's one of the most dangerous things going into relationships, even friendships, like, not just dating, but even friendships. Like, how many times do we, you know, see, like, how, you know, friendships can, you know, just be destroyed, you know what I mean, because of sometimes the way we are.
Right.
You know?
100%.
Yeah. So that's awesome that you finally came to that realization, and that, you know, and like you said, you know, you were able to surrender.
Yeah.
You're able to surrender, and because we need, I'm a 100% believer, like we need Christ. You know what I mean? Like, I mean,
100%.
a lot of times, man, it's, you know, we think of God sometimes like he's just this guy that makes rules and like we can't do this and we can't do that. But in reality, he loves us so much that his true desire is to really protect us and to love on us and to protect us from our own selves sometimes, you know? So
That's true.
what about you, George? Like, what can you recall like from your childhood that you say, man, I can see how these things that I went through
Yeah.
really affected me.
Yeah. So kind of like explaining from what I had a little bit the last time you had me. You know, I grew up with a single mom, grew up with two younger sisters, and so basically I was just raised basically by women. You know,
Yeah.
and so as I grew up, we had a stepdad, which is the real dad of my two younger sisters, and he was basically just an alcoholic, a drug abuser. He sold drugs as well, so we got to see that a lot. You know, we saw a lot of that. You know, and then my sister told me once, like, "Hey, we see the cops more than we see our only family members."
Yeah.
You know, so that's how often they were. You know, there was a period in time that was very, very often. So I saw that abuse. I saw the abuse that he did towards my mom, and so. When I went to high school, I could say that I was kind of like just bouncing from girl to girl to girl because I thought that was a cool thing, you know. I thought that was a cool thing, the macho thing, you know. I played sports in high school, and then I was just kind of like, you know, that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
Then once I got to like 18, I kind of was still doing that, and then I was like yearning for something, you know. As you get to like your 20s, you're like, man, there's probably more to this. There's a little bit more to this. But then with that, not having proper guidance, like a male guidance, I didn't know how to like figure it out. So I had to figure it out myself.
Yeah.
And so there was moments where it was the other way around. And this is usually kind of embarrassing for most guys to say, but they get played, you know, or they have that embarrassing moment where they get, you know, they get played or they don't know what's going on and they're not taking direction in that relationship. And so they lose themselves.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened to me. I took a couple wrong turns in the dating scene right there. And then, you know, I kind of started seeing that trend. I was like, hey, you know what? This is probably from something that from as a kid, not having any direction and not knowing what's right and wrong in this scenario that I have to heal from.
Yeah.
You know, it was just like hurt, you know. And I remember sitting down one time with my mom and my mom was just kind of like, we were having that conversation about like, you know, my stepdad and how there was not really a male figure. Yeah. And she's just kind of breaking down. And I'm just like, you know what, Mom, like this isn't your fault. You know, this isn't your fault. She was kind of blaming herself. Yeah. So I was like, Mom, this isn't your fault, you know, because there's an important lesson that I learned. I have two examples of what not to be. I had my real dad who was never there. And then my stepdad, that was an example like that I saw physically. So I was like, look, there's two examples that I'm not going to be. Yeah. So I'm going to try and break that trend and be something that, you know, that I'm not, you know.
Yeah. No, and that's awesome, man. And was it difficult though, man, to like recognize and to be aware of like, because it's one thing to, like you say, like, man, I see the examples of what I don't want to be. And I feel a lot of us have gone through that, like where, man, I've seen what I don't want to be and I want to try to be better. But sometimes it's hard to break out of that shell, right? Was it hard for you, man?
Yeah, it was. It took a while for me to really recognize that. Only because it's like when you're in the cycle of doing it and you tell yourself like, I'm not going to be that, but you actually are doing it, you don't recognize it. You know, so you gotta kind of get out of the box to really kind of see that, kind of have your alone time. Have your alone time with God. And those are the moments where he like breaks you and like molds you. And those moments hurt. So in those moments, for example, it was like heartbreaks for me. Like people breaking my heart or people like breaking my trust, you know. And so you kind of gotta like learn from those situations, and that's when you kind of see and take yourself out and like, okay, like and I was actually following that trend. And that's what got me there.
And that's what's really hard, man, because it could be, the potential can go either way, like where it does make you more aware, but then also it can make you, it can harden you. You know. And so what do you think the factor was like when what do you think the factor was like to say, okay, like I'm going through this process. It hurts. It's painful, to go through, breakups or even broken trust with people. What do you think that factor was for you to like be able to still have a soft heart and to allow God to do what he needs to do?
There was a few factors, but probably the main factor, and I think we had kind of touched on it a little bit, you and me, Sandra, but she doesn't like when I call about her government name. Babe.
It's babe.
But I got to a point, honestly, like, yeah, there was other factors, like financially, I was like losing money, I was losing relationships, but the main thing was I got to a point where I couldn't really hear God's voice. It sounded like far, far away. It sounded like someone was trying to yell and it was barely getting to my ear.
Yeah.
And that's when it got scary to me, because that's when I was like, nah, I used to hear you so clearly, obviously it's not a straight line up of like success or having this relationship with God. It's up and down. We learn through these trials and tribulations. But at that moment I was like, wow, I'm like, I can barely hear you. I know you're there, but it's me. I know it's me, but I can barely hear you, one. And then I see all the signs around me. My relationships are breaking with like my friends, financially, like business, like everything was like not going the proper direction.
Yeah.
And so that's when I had to kind of take a step back, and I was just like, you know what? This is moments where I need to be alone. This is where I need to be alone. So it took me a little bit a while to be alone, and then that's when my clients were like, "Hey, you should try like getting back in the dating scene, get back in it, And and that's where I met you, babe. See, I fixed that one.
Yeah, no, that's cool, man. I always love to hear that, and I always like to relate things back to our childhood, because we can learn a lot from it, and it's not so much to shift the blame. Like, I love what you did earlier, what you said when you had a conversation with your mom, where it's like, no, like, mom, like, it's not, because I know a lot of our parents like might sometimes when we bring things up about how things might have happened, it can be hurtful, and that's why it's never easy to, when talking about healing, when talking about, but it is necessary, and I think it's necessary not to victimize ourselves, but so that we can learn, and then we can, teach others, what I mean? Like, we can learn to, pass that on to others. And because a lot of times, man, in relationships, like I said earlier, it's not so much that there's the similarities are exactly the same, but the way we feel, the way some of the situations that we go through sometimes, man, like, we're always going to be able to relate to the emotion, to the feeling and stuff, So I'm glad that you guys were both able to, and it seems like God was a big contributing factor, man. Like
He still is.
Yeah, to like, I mean, and that's good. Like, keeping God in the center. I mean, that's huge. That's huge. I always make the analogy. It's like, if you have a Nissan, you're not gonna go to Toyota. You know what I mean? To like get, oh yeah, all right, the Nissan.
I have a Toyota.
You know what I mean? Like, so, if you really want to fix that machine, you know what I mean? Like, you're going to go to its maker.
Yeah.
Like, no one's going to know that car better than its manufacturer, than its maker. And in the same way, like, our lives, like, God really knows us better than we know ourselves. And there's no one that is going to be able to fix our lives, even if it means temporary pain at moments, like, but it's a lot of times like that temporary loneliness, that temporary pain. And maybe we could talk about that. Like, how important is it to be okay with being alone? Like, not lonely, like being alone. Right. How important is that?
It's very important. And that's one of the things on my healing journey after I had got divorced. I really wanted to date myself. It's weird as it sounds. Like, no girls want to take themselves on a date, you know? But it's really getting to know your true inner self. And it's very important. I tell people, like, journal. One of the biggest things that I did was journal, and I spoke a lot about God in my journaling. I, cried. I was those happy things. I've spent time with myself, with God, and also just doing the fun things that I wanted to do that I never got to do because I was so focused on trying to find love. and find that person, you
Yeah.
know? And I forgot about myself.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people forget, is that they forget about themselves and taking care of yourself. And they think they need someone in that moment. No, like it's
Yeah.
good to do things by yourself, because you'll finally love yourself enough to now let someone else in when it's time.
Yeah.
You know, so it's very important. And it's amazing to see, you know, his journey, especially when he told me that he took some time off and he got to date himself and, you know, be around, do the things that he wanted to do.
Yeah.
And when I got to know him, he told me he was in Hawaii. I was like, by yourself?
Yeah.
I was like, are you sure?
I know. Huh?
But
Let me
I was like,
let me Google search
Yeah,
real
no,
quick.
I literally was training one day, and then I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna leave. I just got my backpack and left the next day.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that, like, you know, of course we haven't been single in a long time, but when we do talk to single people or single couples, like, that's one thing, like, man, is there's a difference between being lonely, you know, and I think when we're lonely it's because we haven't been comfortable with who we are alone ourselves, you know, but then there's a difference between that and then being content, you know, like, and I think that should be every single person's goal, is like, can you be content with yourself? Can you be content with what you have? Because a lot of times, like, that is a huge thing, is that we do try to fulfill each other's needs. And the truth is that, like, yeah, there's certain needs that we can, you know, of course, we can fulfill amongst each other. But at the end of the day, like, what truly fulfills us is going to be a relationship with Christ. You know, he's the only one that can truly fill that void
100%.
and bring that confidence in us to be able to be content with, like, hey, you know, like the Apostle Paul said, like, man, I'm content, you know, if I have or I don't have, you know what I mean? If I'm going through trials or or everything is okay, like, I learn to be content. If I have or I don't have, I've learned to be content. And I think that that's one of the things that, and I feel like that should be a goal. Like, when in single life is not how do you say, not to just throw in the towel and just be like, whatever. No, but like, be content, like, in learning and knowing how to be alone, knowing how to, like, enjoy yourself, like, because that's one of the things, like, sometimes, like, can we even enjoy ourselves?
yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I had a friend once tell me, like, hey, just go to a restaurant by yourself and sit down and just enjoy that time by yourself. If you can do that, then you're not going to really need much people. Not in a negative way, but just, again, enjoying your own presence.
Yeah.
You know, can you go to the movie theaters by yourself? I remember him telling me that.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I don't think I've ever gone to the movie theaters by myself. And I did it one time, and I was like, all right, I guess I'll actually watch the movie. You know, it's like, let's really pay attention now. You know, but it's true, because it's like we're so used to being with people around us, whether it be friends or you're dating. You know, like, usually when you're, like, at home and you're like, I kind of want to go to the movies, you have to hit somebody up. But there could be moments where you could just be by yourself, and like you said, it's not a negative thing. It's just getting to know yourself.
Yeah, 100%, 100%, man. That's good stuff. You know, I've always, like, one of my mentors, he's always like, he passed away already, but he used to always say, like, yeah, you need to find ways to entertain yourself in a way, like, positive, in a healthy way, like, where you're not just relying on your wife, you know what I mean? Or you're just not relying on even just your kids, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, you got to find things that you like to do, that you enjoy, you know, that are going to refresh you and things like that.
Right.
But a lot of times, man, like, a lot of men and women too. This is next question. What toxic traits did you guys see in your life when you guys started dating? What were some of the things that you're like, dang, when we first started dating?
She had a list from me.
What was the list?
Well, I'm a personal trainer, so that was already right off the tops, you know. I remember when we first dated, I actually told her that I was talking to other people. I let her know right off the bat.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, I'm, like, talking to everyone and everyone. Hey, if you want to just... I was very, very trained. When I told her that this was an interview, I was like, I was very serious about that. I was like, hey, like... If you want to, like, remain my friend, cool. If you don't, I get it. If you want something more, then this actually wasn't really in the mood to, like, date. I remember telling you, I was like, I just kind of just want to see where it goes.
You wanted to build a friendship.
Yeah,
first.
yeah. So I'm pretty sure she already had a list of traits for me. Like, I don't know. But I was very honest from her from the beginning. I was very like, I communicated with her everything, and I don't know what other toxic traits I had, but I know you were like, oh, he's a trainer. Trainer at self-made.
It was funny because, coming from a past experience of like jealousy and insecurity and all that stuff as a woman, my first thought when he said he was a trainer, I was like, oh, he's around a lot of women. Like, I probably don't look like a 10. Like, I'm not even close to what he's going to want, because that was that insecurity part inside me thinking that I wasn't going to be that person for him. Yeah. Maybe he's expecting something else. But, then again, I allowed myself to just go back into myself and say, hey, you know what? Like, you got to value your worth and go in there. And wherever it goes, it's going to go. And one thing I did love about him was that he was very honest. And I went into, friendship, going into getting to know each other is you got to have those uncomfortable talks. Whether it's the first couple of dates, whether it's the first couple of weeks or months, I always tell every couple, have those uncomfortable talks and let it be clean, let it be mutual, let it be understanding. Because months from now, you have those talks and then there's arguments,
right?
So you guys have to be able to sit there with each other and be able to understand what his lifestyle was before he met you.
Right.
What my lifestyle was before he met me.
Yeah.
And go into that and understand each other and be willing enough to say, hey, okay, we did this, you did that, I did that. Let's put it behind and let's see where life is going to go.
Yeah.
And that's one of the best things that we have till this day is that we're very open with each other. We communicate very great as a best friend. And that's what I love about us is that, we don't fight. We really talk about everything.
Yeah.
And we're quick enough to go in and understand the situation and let it go, work on it together, and just continue the lives that we're building with each other, know? So that's the grateful part out of it. So when he had said, when we were dating and getting to know each other, it was on my part, I was like, oh.
So was that, that's what I was going to say. Cause that's, because everything's a risk, any relationship, even friendship and everything. You're always kind of like going in with a risk because relationships involve our soul, involves our emotions, it involves our heart, and so, we're always exposing ourselves out there. So in the beginning for him to like say that, I'd be like, hey, you know what, like honestly though, like low key, was that kind of like hard or was it like, man, you know what, I can respect that. He's being honest.
Yeah. In all honesty, it was more like, I can respect that because we're not young, there's a whole lifestyle out there. There's now he's on a dating app. I met him on a dating app.
Yeah. So you were kind of like,
She knew what she signed up for.
So
that's the raw footage part is that I did meet you on a dating application with a lot of women on there.
Yeah.
So I can't go in there being insecure, thinking that you're not going to have a roster.
Right.
I know you are. And maybe I might. But at the end of the day, it's like, we knew what we got ourselves into and where it was going to lead to.
Yeah. It's taking a chance. Taking that chance.
Yeah. And that gave me more respect for her because it's like anyone could just been like, hey, like, bye, and that would have been okay because that's what they thought, hey, this isn't for me, but for the fact that because we honestly did start off as just like friends, we really just it kind of felt like we were just like friends. But then after like about a month and a half, it's like, no, I really do want to be with you. Like let's do it.
Company.
Yeah, like my company started being from like, oh, we're just meeting once a week to now we're hanging out almost every day.
Yeah.
Like, all right, I can see myself with you.
Yeah. All right. No, yeah. So what other
babe? I think he asked for your toxic trait.
I
was like, why is all the toxic traits on me?
I was just about to jump in. Yeah. All right, Sandra. Okay. Nah.
What was my toxic trait?
What about you, Sandra?
No toxic traits. I'm just kidding. I'm like, what? I don't. Then again, I'm trying to recap on back at the time.
Yeah.
Not very much on toxic traits on. It was just more in a sense, going into the dating app and having to expose, what was your past experience. When I got to see his profile, he was just a single guy. no kids, never been married. I was like, I got it, you know? So when we had went into going on dates with each other, the first date, I had let him know, like, hey, I have 2 kids and I was previously married and, you know, this is where it's at. And I was very scared because, you know, you don't know what the other person's going to think.
Right.
Like, you know, you could take it in a negative way. You're like, oh, that's probably too much baggage right there. You know, I don't want to deal with that. Like, how's that person on the other side? You know, so one of the things is that what I respected on myself was, you know, take the time to get to know the person. Don't just throw it all out there.
Yeah.
And I was very open with him on certain things in my life where I didn't know if it was an issue with him. And I was scared.
Yeah.
But also, too, I was like, you know, I need to trust myself and I need to trust him.
Yeah.
I need to trust where we're going to be.
Yeah.
Because we do come from a different lifestyle from each other's, you know? And so as it progressed, you know, he got to understand and start to see some of the raw footage, you know? And it was scary for me in the beginning because I was like, man, like, is this person going to walk away?
Yeah.
You know, because that's the part that I was scared of because, you know, again, past experience, that's what had happened. And it hurt a lot to try to put myself back out there again.
Yeah.
And I once told him, I said, I'm sorry, but if I'm in this forever. Like, that's it. I'm not playing this game again.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he liked because I was like, you know, this is it. I'm not doing this again. You know, like if I'm in, I'm in.
Yeah.
And if you're in too. So let's do it. Let's go for it.
Yeah. No, that's good. Cause I mean, I can totally understand how that would be scary, you know, to go in, you know, given your situation. Cause like you said, like you always have that in the back of your mind, you know what I mean? Like, and that's why I have, you know, so much respect for single moms, you know, with kids that are trying to find love again. You know what I mean? Like I have so much sympathy and so much understanding for them because you know, just the dating world itself is crazy, you know, but then, you know, now you are, you know, to put yourself out there after whatever might have happened, it's kind of like getting out of a surgery, you know, it's like, you know, you want to, like your body, your mind wants to go all in, but you know, you have to listen to your body. You have to, I mean, you as a personal trainer know, like, you know, you have to take those steps little by little, strengthen areas in your life. And that's why I like what you said right now is because I feel like sometimes when people go on a healing journey, for example, what can happen, I know it's happened to me, where we can become so overprotective of ourselves, where we now are content with ourselves, we're content with the place where we're at, and now we want to, whatever the situation may be, we want to go back in, but there's that fear, you know, and maybe sometimes we can be so overprotective where, you know, we can lay all the cards on the table, like in that first day or those first moments or whatever, and we can scare people and be like, oh, dang, like, you know what I mean? Like, whoa, this is too much, like, slow down. But I like what you said is that you, even though you had that fear, even though you had it, but you're like, you know what? I'm going to get to know this person little by little. And I'm going to expose little by little. And I'm going to understand little by little. And then even being willing to have healthy conversations from the start. Because I think that's another huge thing is not being willing to have these honest conversations in the start, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely, that was key, like communication. Like right from the beginning, it was communication, you know, and and like you said, like not being afraid to have that conversation. And so I think part of like putting it in the perspective of like people who are watching and are thinking about dating is like, don't be afraid to ask that question. Don't be afraid to ask that question that's in the back of your mind. Like, especially if you've been like dating somebody for a while, like, hey, you need to have these conversations right now. Like the way that we communicate is different, but now we met each other in the middle. She was one person that was like, oh, like if we had an issue, like let's talk about it when everyone diffuses. You know, like let's diffuse first and then we'll have the conversation like maybe later today. I'm more like, hey, let's have this conversation right here and right now. If you tell me that we're good, then we are good. And we are walking out of this door with a smile on our face, like nothing's bothering us.
And it's not gonna come back.
It's not gonna come back. If you left it there, then leave it there. But I had to understand that not everyone communicates like that.
Right.
You know, I had to go back and kind of reflect and basically like humble myself and be like, you know what? maybe I do need to diffuse a little bit before we have this conversation.
Yeah.
Or maybe she's probably processing it differently.
Yeah.
So that's important too, is like figuring out like whoever you're dating, kind of figuring out like what's the best way to communicate.
Yeah. And I think that's such beautiful advice, man, because it's like I think sometimes we can go into a situation with a picture perfect mentality, you know, and or like my wife said earlier, we can start to set really high expectations for each other of what we expect from one another, but we never communicate it. You know, they're just kind of imagined expectations, you know, or unspoken expectations. And it's so dangerous because then, man, like, you know, you don't give the grace to one another to understand that we are different, you know, that every personality is different. And I think that's the danger zone of not healing before dating, because we can project our past hurts onto the new relationship. You know, we could easily do that if we don't if we don't allow God to fix or heal. And doesn't mean that when I say like allow God to fix or heal, it doesn't mean that it's going to happen instantaneous, but at least it does bring us the awareness that, you know what, this person is not my past relationship, or this person is not my past friendship. You know, I have to be graceful enough to give them the opportunity. And if they do show an ugly side of themselves, like, be graceful, because there's ugly sides of me too. You know, and I think sometimes we can forget that, like, and that's why I was like, what are the toxic traits? Because like, and some of the things that you guys, I think those are toxic traits that I think a lot of us have, like the trust issues, you know, like that
Of course.
can be very toxic. You know what I mean? Like the communication styles, you know, like the wanting, you know, we had like issues like that in the beginning too, like where, not just in the beginning, like for a lot, like where she was the type that wanted answers right now and then. And I was the kind I was like, look, like,
I want to fix the situation.
fix. I want to fix the situation right here, right now. And I was always kind of like, no, like, you know, you don't want my answer right now. You know what I mean? Because it might not be what it might not be what you want to hear at the moment. So it is better to diffuse, think about things, and then be able to come back, you know, better. So understanding that is huge,
course.
especially in dating, because then I think that's where you give people a fair chance, you know. And I feel like sometimes in dating, people don't give each other that fair chance because they don't really get to know each other. And then the moment they do, you know, expose who they really are or something, you know, it's kind of like, I didn't know this about you.
Right.
You know?
It's kind of tough too. Like nowadays, like you said, give that person time and give them a chance. Because nowadays it's like social media and media itself is just showing that like that it's got to be like quick. If they don't make this much money, if they don't do this, if they don't do that, then you better leave them. You know, for guys and for girls. You know, I'm scrolling on TikTok and it's like, you know, 1 minute I see a list of like girls making a list like where guys can't take them, and it's like number one was like cheesecake. I was like, we just went there. I love that.
I'd be going in on the bread.
I love it. Yeah. It has like every list that I like. Like Yard House, Cheesecake. I was like, I like all these places. But then I scroll and then it's a guy like speaking down on like, hey, like you should, you know, like on women, like, and it's just like both ways, you know, it goes both ways. Like, and so the society just wants everybody to be so fast and to have to basically already have it.
Yeah.
And not all of us have it, you know?
Right.
You know, we're all figuring it out. And then at that point you put two people together and it's like you're figuring it out together.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's man, I'm glad that you brought that up, because bro, like I think like again, culture, man, really does, whether we know it or not, whether we believe it or not, whether we accept it or not, culture does have a big say like on how dating, friendships, even sometimes like the other day, man, I think it was Lecrae. He posted something where he was like, man, like not all social media content should be taken as advice, you know, and too many times like we do, or too many times we do have people trying to, you know, and that's one thing that I'm very careful with. Like I never, because I'm a very big, like, everyone's always like, you're always talking about context. I was like, because context is key.
Yeah, it is.
Like, it's key. Like, I mean, I don't care how, if it bothers you or not, or I don't care if people, but it's because it's key. Like, why? Because I have, first of all, like, I have hands-on in my own life, but I have hands-on experience with other people, and not every single person that we've talked to or we've dealt with, or even my own life, has been the same.
Right.
You know, so every situation, every personality, everyone's life experience is different. Everyone's past is different. So context is so important.
Right.
You know, but we do live in a culture where it's like we take bits and pieces of advice from people that don't know context of our own life.
Right.
And that's why I'm a big believer in community. I'm a big believer in mentorship, like having people that know you,
Right.
having close relationships to you, because giving them the context to your life is huge.
Yeah.
To mentoring you, to counseling you, to giving you the answers. Because social media, man, they're gonna
It can drag you.
boom. Yeah, if
It's
they're like
Cheesecake Factory.
yeah,
Isn't good.
and
Cheesecake.
yeah, like, come on, man, like, I bet you anything, bro. Like,
Their bread is so good.
yes, exactly, bro. The
We
brown
got in on
one. I don't know what kind it is. The brown one.
The brown one.
It's a brown one.
Like,
It's definitely
nice
brown.
and soft, bro. You butter it up, bro. Like,
Oh, when it's all warm too.
you know what I mean? Like, but you know what I mean? But how many, like, what's crazy though about that is we can laugh about it.
Yeah.
But how many people have actually took that serious?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I can guarantee you that a lot of people took that serious, and that's what's sad is that you got young guys going into the dating market with this type of mentality, and you know, it's sad and that's where things like that happen. Like what you brought up earlier, it's like they get taken advantage of, you know, or you know, they get used, you know what I mean, or you know, or girls that think that they set all these high expectations, you know, where they should be having this, they should have this, but then they don't think about what about their personality,
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
how are they, you know, and
Right.
how are they with my kids, right? How are they with my parents? How are they with their parents? You know, how are they with the waiter, with the waitress? You know, like, how do they treat people? Like,
Right.
you know, and we forget about all these morals. We forget about all these values. And we, you know, we're you know,
think-
TikTok counsels us sometimes.
I think what it is that I always tell my girlfriends, I'm like, every couple, not a couple, I'm sorry, but every man and woman, they're structured on this timeline. You know, it's that timeline where they're 20s, they're like, oh, let me get the career, let me get that job, let me get that woman, let me get that ring, let me get that house, let me get that family, and then I'll be happy.
Yeah,
And then it's like, no, that's not how it's supposed to go.
right.
You're supposed to get in touch with yourself. That stuff will come eventually.
Yeah.
But take time. And, you know, for someone as myself was rushed into all that, you know, I realized, I was like, man, this isn't the life
Yeah.
that society pushed you for.
Yeah.
You know, so that's where, you know, unfortunately with the generation we see now,
Yeah.
they're waiting for that timeline. I need to do this by the time I'm 30.
Yeah.
You know, I need to get here. I need to be in love. I need to be married. You know, oh, that person's married. That person got there. Why can't I get there? And it's like, no, take your time.
Yeah.
You know?
Every situation, context.
Yeah.
That's gonna be my new word. Right there.
Context.
Context.
Keyword context. No, yeah, because and kind of piggyback off that, because right now, like right away, what came to my mind is like I think about like my grandma who passed away. Well, both my great grandma and my grandma, they're now gone. And but I think about their life, and I think about like for example, man, my grandma, she was like one of the happiest persons I ever met. You know, and she didn't have much. You know, she didn't have a lot to offer. She didn't have, you know, but she had so much richness, you know what I mean? Like, and her personality and the way she was so loving, so kind, and everyone loved her, and her children adored her. Us as grandkids adored her. I mean, and you know, but I think about that is that she knew who she was, you know, and I think about my great grandma too. I mean, when she passed away, literally the whole ranch over there in Mexico, like the whole ranch, and it's a big ranch of people over there. They were all at her funeral, you know, all of them, because they all knew the type of person, you know, and I just can't, I can't help to think like, man, like sometimes I'm not saying that I understand we're in a different time. Like, I'm not oblivious to that. Like, I understand we're in a different time. But I feel that sometimes we do miss out. You know, we do miss out on really what matters.
Right.
You know, and because it really does go back to them. Like, they understood who they were. And they were happy enough to accept who they were. You know, they didn't have to like follow a crazy pipe dream. You know, if it wasn't in the cards for them, it wasn't in the cards, but they were still able to be content.
Yeah.
And they were still able to raise a beautiful, I mean, like my great grandma, we were doing the math the other day, and it was like, it's like over 120 descendants, you know, for my great grandma.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, she was so rich.
Right.
Maybe not wealthy, like money and all that, but she was so rich with family, you know what I mean? And I feel that a lot of times we do miss that, where it's like, who are we?
Yeah.
You know, like you said, who are we? Who am I? Who is Sandra? Who is George? Who is George? Who is Jeanette? Like, who are we? And are we content with that? And then if we can build off that together, like, that's more beautiful than just, hey, it's a list of check marks.
Yeah.
Hey,
Right.
if you don't check off this list, we can't vibe.
Yeah. That's the dating world now.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not in it anymore.
Right. Same.
Yeah. man.
Respectfully, of course. Respectfully.
Yeah. So my next question is, because I didn't get to ask that. How did you feel about that? Because you come from a single mom,
Yeah.
George, right?
Yeah.
So when she told you that, like, hey, like, what was your reaction? How'd you feel?
So it wasn't my first rodeo. I had dated before with people that have kids.
Okay.
You know, so it wasn't my first rodeo. So when she told me, you know, I kind of took a step back, because I kind of saw how she was, as far as like with her kids, how she would talk about her kids, you know, and she told me right away, she's like, oh, you're not going to meet my kids anytime soon. It's going to take a long time.
Okay.
You know, and it took about a year.
Wow.
And honestly, that to me was like a green flag. So this is going to be advice for any dude that is out there that is dating a single mom. If a mom shows you their kids right away, that is a red flag, because they're just exposing to as many men as they can. And that was just from my experience.
Right.
When I dated someone who had kids, and they would show me their kids like right away, like 2 weeks after knowing them, a month after knowing them, and me barely knowing them, that was already a red flag for me, because it was like, oh, what other guy have you exposed your kids to? And then that's why it didn't work out, you know, versus when she was like, you're not going to meet my kids anytime soon.
Yeah.
I respected that. And I was like saying like, hey, let's see if it's true. Let's see if it's true. And it was. And it let me know like her parenting style. It kind of let me know a little bit about like boundaries. That's what it was. It was boundaries. Can you set boundaries? Can you do this? And at the same time, the thing that a lot of people don't talk about boundaries either is when someone sets boundaries, you the person on the other end has to respect that. And that's what I had to do. It like taught me like more self-discipline, like respecting those boundaries. And also when I met her kids, it was already respect right off the bat, because it wasn't like me saying, hey, let me meet your kids.
Yeah.
It wasn't her saying, hey, do you want to meet George? Remember? It was her kids saying, I want to meet
beautiful.
George. It was very natural. It was random. She was like, hey, my kids are asking about you more, because, you know, they start seeing like pictures and, you know, like that mom is like going on a date, you know. And so they were like, we want to meet George. Yeah. So when they met me, it was very like, it was
very organic.
It was very organic,
Yeah.
right? It wasn't awkward or anything like that. You know, they were cool. I bought them pizza, and I had the Nintendo. I had a Nintendo 64. So I brought it out. It was like in the closet, and I brought it out. And so we were playing Nintendo 64. Yep.
That's definitely what
It was
happened
Mario
today.
Kart.
Got a little bit of alcohol.
it was Mario Kart, and you know we were playing, and you know they had a good time.
Yeah.
You know, they had
Yeah.
a good time.
That's cool. No, that's huge. What was your talk about a little bit your reasoning behind that year?
Well, you know, a lot of it had to do with respect for myself.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't want to expose my kids like that to anybody because, all they know is their dad. And I was like, okay, I want to make sure I take my time with this because I've seen my friends go through what they went through, see them in and out of relationships and their kids are going through it, and it's tough because I'm like, man, the only one that's hurting are those kids, because they're seeing all of that. And then again, I reflect back to myself of when I was growing up and what I saw.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's what I don't want to be. I don't want to be like my stepmom. I don't want to see that, so I want to give that same respect to my children.
Yeah.
And that was one of the biggest things that when I told him, I said, you're not going to meet my kids because you're going to meet me for me, not me as a mother, not me as a divorced woman, not who you think I am on social media, but just me.
That's
because
good.
I want you to know who Sandra is.
Damn,
and then,
that's deep.
and
That's
then the
good.
mother will come. And then myself will come. Everything else that comes with it. So
that's really good. I like that. I've never seen it like that. And that's really good.
Yeah. And, once, like I say all the time, timing's everything. So when we started to get to know each other, he had asked me to be his girlfriend a couple months after that. And it was a beautiful setting, too, on top of that, because prior when I started dating him, I had bought concert tickets, Christian concert tickets. And we were talking about it back in like July. I'm buying the tickets for November.
Okay.
So I'm like I'm like, all right,
yeah,
this guy,
you
we're
guys
gonna
are
go.
already planning months ahead.
And we go. We not even a lot of my friends kept asking me like, what if it's not him and you're buying the tickets? I'm like, whatever God goes, like we're gonna go.
I have an extra ticket.
I have an extra ticket. I was like, I'll take my kids. But it happened, and we went to We went to the concert. It was beautiful. It was magical. It was very graceful, and it felt very loving and pure. And I felt God right there. And I also felt God telling me, like, continue to be patient. I'm going to show you the way. I'm going to show you. Yeah. And as you continue having me in the center of your direction, the time will come to introduce those kids to him. And it happened to be that, my kids, they had asked me to, like, are you talking to somebody? I was like, no, mom's just, I can't be, I'm going to be by myself. And then at one point my kids were like, dad's dating. How come you're not talking to nobody? And I'm like, that's when the time comes, the time will come.
Yeah.
And so probably we were already like together at that point. And as it got closer, my son started noticing. He's like, you're smiling a little bit different now, And it was so beautiful to see my son happy. And he had told my sister, like, mom's really happy. I see that in her. And as a month passed by, my son had mentioned, he was like, Mom, can I meet George? Because I had told him his name, and I was like, yeah, of course. And that's when I reached out to George, and I was like, hey, babe, like, kids want to meet you. And at that point, that's where I felt like I was like, man, we're going in the right path. I took my time, and I was very graceful to finally allow it to grow where it needed to go.
Yeah. No, that's really good. I really like that point that you said of that. Again, like that's really good because I never really saw it that way, but that's a really good point that you wanted him to know you.
Yeah.
Because I think, I'm sure you've probably even seen it too growing up where, you're introduced to the kids and then you can fall in love with the kids. Mm-hmm. There's been situations like that where, they fall in love with the kids and then, let's say it doesn't work out between, and it is very painful because maybe that mom, that woman or that man, vice versa, can like, man, I really fell in love with these kids. Like I was really or the kids fall in love with them, you know what I mean? And then it just becomes harder. Or sometimes they'll stay together because of that, so I really like that point. Like that's a really good point. I think that people can pick up on that and say, yeah, you know what, that's a really good point. Like, cause there's nothing more important than, because at the end of the day, like it's even with like they always tell us like in marriage counseling and all that, it was like, like it's okay, you're looking after the kids and that's great, that's important. But at the end of the day, one of these days, these kids are gonna be gone. Yeah. They're gonna go to college. They're gonna go to, they're gonna get their own families one day, and it's just gonna be you and you. So cultivate that relationship more than anything. So I love that. And then, so when you finally like, okay, 1 year, respected the boundaries, pulled out. How has that been cultivating the relationship now with kids, like soon to be, your stepson and stepdaughter.
Yeah. So I mean, it's fun. It's never a dull moment. It's never a dull moment with kids. They definitely bring out a different side, especially someone who doesn't have kids.
Yeah.
You really have to be unselfish to be a parent. It's all about the kids. Yes, there's a part of you where it's like I need to develop myself, but then at the same time, you start as a parent, you're like, you're doing this for them.
Right.
Everything you're doing. We were just having this conversation. I was like, like I have other business ventures on the side, and I told her, I was like, look, I'm doing this for you guys. It wasn't even about I didn't even like think about it twice. I said it's for you guys. It's not about me anymore.
Yeah.
It's about us as a family. What we're bringing in. It's me and her, and then her 2 kids. Soon to be my kids as well. I'm gonna look at it like that. And so we're. I just want to be the best example that I can. The best example that I can. Yeah, they have their dad, but while they're here with us,
right?
I have to be the best that I can.
Yeah.
So the relationship is been good. It's been really, really good. We have good talks. Me and her son Landon, and then man, Stella. That's my homegirl right there.
Bestie.
Yeah, that's my little bestie right there.
That's cool.
Yeah, she always wants to go with me everywhere I go. Even if it's just like walking the dog, she's like, "I'll go with you. Let's go." Let's go.
That's cool. And how does that make you feel when you see that?
It's beautiful. There's moments I just capture in my head, and I'm like, I need my phone for this. But other times I'm like, this is beautiful. Like, God is good.
Yeah.
God is really good. It's crazy how everything had ventured as from what, our experience just itself, our past experience, or what we had to go through to finally get to where we're at today. And, so capturing those moments and seeing that joy and seeing, the love in that, and the kids finally get to experience like mommy happy, and mommy now loves George. My kids are funny because they're like, ew, you guys are kissing. But the crazy part behind closed doors, my son had told my sister, it's great to see mommy kissing George rather than yelling at my dad. So, and it's that dynamic is beautiful to hear. It's beautiful to hear it itself, because it's kind of like, man, that's what I want my kids to see.
Right.
I want them to see that, yes, it didn't work out between me and your dad, but there is love out there. As long as you continue to put yourself out there and you trust the process, like I hope, I pray that, my kids see me and they're like, damn, like that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. You literally are able to change the trajectory that they could have had. Cause like I said earlier, sometimes we are vacuumed in, we're sucked back into the toxic behaviors that we did see growing up, and, whether it be trying to find love in the wrong places, or whether it be struggling with being alone, or whether it be like, struggling with how do I go into this dating scene? How do I treat a lady? And I think that's why, like, I'm a big believer, like, there's, we can reach the world, but what good is it that we reach the world if we lose our soul? And I think that's why I'm such a firm believer in cultivating the family. Family is important, because our kids are gonna see that. Our kids are gonna see how, like, that should be our desire. Like, I want my son to know how to treat a lady. I want my son to learn how to resolve conflict in a healthy way. I want my daughter to be able to see that. You know what I mean? And so being able to work at that, it's not easy. Like, I know, right? Like, it's like, we see, but it's right. It's not easy.
It's definitely not easy.
It's not. It takes a lot of work.
Yeah, it's work, man. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see what continues to flourish out of this relationship with you guys. Like, I'm excited to, it's exciting to be able, like you said, man, that you're gonna take on that role. Like, that's a beautiful thing too. Like, I've always said it. I have family that where a stepdad is in the picture, and they adopted them like just like if they were their own. You know what I mean? And it's a beautiful thing to be able to see that. And because it really does something to like we're a blended family too, you know. And so like I love to see how she embraces my daughter. You know, I love to see that it's a beautiful feeling when it's like, okay, like the dots are connecting.
Right.
Yeah.
And like what God said, man, that he causes all things to work together for those that love him, you know. And that's a beautiful thing, that's a beautiful hope to have. And I think that's a beautiful message that we can leave to people, is that it doesn't matter what you've gone through or where you've been or how ugly your past might have been. Like God is able to turn it around. But I think the key is, like what you said earlier, is surrender.
Yeah, it's very surrendering.
And so why do you think it's hard sometimes for people to come to that place of surrender?
I mean, my pastor said it good one time. He said, as weird as it sounds, it's because sin feels good. You know, the things of this world, like people don't want to give it up. And with the things of this world comes also thinking like the world. You know, so surrendering, like as in society, for example, as a man, like you're not taught to surrender. You're taught to fight back.
Yeah.
You're taught, ain't nobody gonna talk to me like that. Ain't nobody gonna do this. You're taught to fight back, but you're not taught to surrender and just, hey, give it up. It's not about you. You can't do it by yourself, you know? Sometimes you do need help. No one talks about that. You know what I mean? So I think that's why it's tough to surrender, because one, like you said, like the culture, society itself, and then something going back to your childhood, to all of our childhood, is like something was embedded in there.
Yeah.
And it's tough to uproot that. And with surrendering, like that takes practice too. Because you could surrender for a second and then you fall back into it. You're like, no, you know what? I'm going to revert. No, give it back to me. I'm
this
good.
Isn't working.
Yeah, this isn't working.
Yeah.
I tried it then. Nope, it's not going to work again.
Yeah.
But if you surrender, you'll see the good behind it. But again, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. It goes with all of us,
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
that's true. I think the toughest part about it is, you know, as women and men, having that closure to surrender. You know, it's one of those things, like a lot of people are so focused on blaming that other person and other people about their actions, but it's kind of like, what about your own actions? You know, one of the biggest part of my journey is when I had to go through the self-healing, I had to realize, like, hey, I was toxic at one point. I did have a lot of negative issues. I did, you know, whether it was good or bad, like there was some working things that I needed to do within myself. And I took one long drive to the mountains. And I remember just pinpointing, like, you know, God, how come that person can't be like this, can't be like that, like this, and that? And I heard God heavy say, what about you? What about you? You're not perfect either. And at that point, I was like, man, you're right. And I remember just putting the gospel music on and put my hands up. I got out of the car at one point and fell to the ground.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, like, God, I'm sorry. I didn't work on myself. I didn't love myself. I didn't value myself enough to see the mistakes that I was going through, that I was dealing with, what I was putting that other person with, putting them on, you know? So when you don't see yourself, you're never going to see anything. You're always going to blame somebody else for that. And I think that's where coming into a new relationship, I'm like, I'm done putting the blame on someone, because I need to see from my own actions.
Yeah.
You know, it's that work in progress. you
Yeah.
know? So
I love it. Yeah. So it's like, I think you guys both brought a good mix of, like, surrender, because it's hard to surrender, because sin feels good, you know, and that is a very difficult thing, you know, sometimes to let go of, you know, because we do want the moment pleasure, you know, but eventually, like, we all got to come to terms to be like, man, do we want it our way or God's way? You know, God will, and that's the beautiful thing about God, is that he still gives us a second chance, third chance, fourth chance, you know, and he's always waiting with open arms, you know, and the day we get tired, you know what I mean? But what I always tell people is that don't wait so long, though, because with the decisions we make also comes learned patterns.
yeah.
You know, and that's one of the things that I always try to encourage people. I'm like, look, it's not that God's going to stop loving you. He loves you for who you are. But you got to understand that the more we practice this, the more we continue to do this, the harder it's going to be.
Yeah.
Like you said, the continued surrender, you know, or like you said earlier, like we can surrender for that moment, but then when we're, back to a moment where it triggers us, or we remember a certain feeling or something, and it can trigger us back to that behavior.
Yeah.
And so we have to be able to, and then have accountability.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing that I'm super huge on, and that's kind of our goal with moving forward with the podcast is really, that's why I love so much that with mental health and God's way and mental health, like it can go together. I know as the church we've kind of been bad at kind of dealing with mental health at times, but because we think that we have to separate it, but in reality we don't. Like it does go together, like because we have to understand that if we take accountability and take responsibility, I know I can admit and we can admit that a lot of the things that we do go through or we have gone through, it has been because of our sin.
Yeah.
It really it does root back to that. And so God wants us to understand that, there's outside situations that influence, but at the same time, at the end of the day, you still have to deal with that inside. And once you allow God to deal with that inside, then it becomes like, it's like the Bible literally says, like scales that fall off our eyes. Now we're able to see, okay, man, now, oh, wow, I understand why I'm this way now.
Yeah.
So I got to change this, and I have to improve in this area, or I have to humble myself in this area, or I got to like accept, I got to accept this for that, you know what I mean? So thank you guys so much for that, for man, how long did we do?
An hour and 16.
Yeah, see, like it goes by quick, man. We could be here forever, bro.
Yeah.
It goes by so quick, but thank you guys so much, man.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, for sharing
thank
you
you,
guys'
thank you.
journey. And last words, man. Last words of take your time, no rush. Whatever you want to say, if you guys want to look into that camera, and whatever you guys want to encourage. Last words of encouragement.
Last words of encouragement. I guess I would say, saying what my fiance was saying earlier, just take your time.
Take your time.
Just take your time. Take time to date yourself, to get to know yourself. Take time. If you are dating someone, just take time to get to know them for them, whether if they're a single parent, former divorcee. I mean, I'm speaking from someone who's in their 30s, and that's pretty common, And so take your time, and then, I think from there it'll be pretty good.
Yeah.
That's what my fiance said.
Any words of encouragement or?
It's just love yourself. As for the ladies, love yourself. Continue to date yourself as well. Whether you are out of the dating scene, just find that moment to just be there for yourself. And when that dating scene does come, trust the process and be open to it. And have those uncomfortable talks. It's okay. You won't get in trouble, but you never know where it can lead you. So
Let's go. And guys, there's nothing wrong with Cheesecake Factory.
I love Cheesecake Factory.
Cheesecake Factory is bomb, man. I don't care what anyone says, man. It's bomb. They got a menu the size of a book, but no, but yeah. So I hope this encourages you guys out there, whoever's listening to this. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you guys for the continuous support. And again, what an encouraging story. I love hearing stories like this, because it's offbeat. It's an offbeat love story. You know what I mean? And it just, I love bringing and highlighting stories like this because a lot, like I said, we said it earlier, social media has a way of influencing and controlling in a way of what we think a relationship should look like. And to be honest, man, a lot of times that can mess with your mind. It can mess with what it is you think you want. And a lot of times there could be a good guy out there, waiting for you. But because of all these different things, you limit yourself. Or there could be a girl, a great gal that's waiting to meet you, waiting to build a relationship with you. But for whatever reason, sometimes we don't give them that opportunity because of the expectations we have. So for Valentine's Day, man, I hope you guys have a great Valentine's Day. If you say, it's cool, I'm okay with my couch and watching a movie and throwing in some popcorn. Hey, more power to you. You know what I mean? So, but whatever the situation may be, message us, like and share this. Continue to subscribe to our YouTube channel and share this with someone. You know what I mean? We had some great laughs here today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you guys, George, Sandra.
Thank you.
This was Offbeat Podcast. Let's go.
Sometimes life happens.
We see you.
And you feel all alone.
We feel you.
With nowhere to go.
We got you.
So many questions unanswered.
We understand. Yeah.
And you feel like you can't
But God
wrestle with
understands.
your own thoughts. This is for you.
Yeah.
When life happens and it makes you feel like you're off the beat, off the beat, off the beat.